Right, hello. So this is going to be a very different type of video to ones that I've done in the past. And this is basically going to be like a closure video over the platform alteration issue that we've had at Leyland Railway Station. You might remember some videos that I've done in the past on this. So let's get right into it. So, as you may already know from Nick Badley, I volunteer regularly at Leyland Railway Station as part of Friends of Leyland Station. I'd also regularly commute to and from Leyland Station when I was at university. But there was one issue which I noticed frequently as a volunteer and also when I was travelling, which was platform alterations. The customer information system would only announce and display the alteration when the service was actually arriving at the station. Got a video here to demonstrate.
Attention please, this is a platform alteration. The 15.
Right, screen flips over, announcement is playing. And where is the train? It's there. And people are running to it. Hurry up, it's pulling in! A situation where this is acceptable in this day and age is honestly disgraceful. Right, so yeah, as you can see from that, that is pretty disgraceful. I would like to emphasise it wasn't always like this exactly. If the ticket office was open, they would usually receive a phone call from the signallers at Preston Power Signal Box, and then they could announce it manually over the microphone. But this didn't change the information that the CIS was receiving, um, which resulted in a conflict of information. Customers ended up getting confused, crossing back over again. The wrong announcements were playing, and as we saw in this particular instance, if I recall correctly, the ticket office was shut. There are also many instances where a signaller would either forget to call or put the train on the wrong platform in error. So, yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. It was stressful for passengers. Having to run across to another platform is not a pleasant experience for anyone at all. Never mind people who may be disabled. Like I say, people with mobility struggles are very much unfairly disadvantaged by this. And I did come across many instances when people were unable to catch a train as a result of this, even like people with prams, luggage needing to use the lifts. And it was a massive health and safety concern as well because running across platforms up and down stairs is not safe at all. You see all sorts of messages at stations telling you not to run. Well, in an instance like this, you haven't really got much of a choice. And there was a potential for increased trespass risk. I never witnessed any trespassing occurring here because of a platform alteration, but apparently it has happened in the past where someone just decided to run across the tracks instead. And there's also financial consequences for Northern. Leaving passengers will result in delay repay payouts and will reduce the likelihood of them travelling with them again. Also, there's a dwell delay that occurs if the guard does hold the service for them, and that in turn um, will lead to financial consequences for Northern as well. So, why was this happening? So let's have a little look at the data that's available from the signalling system. So this is a diagram from Traxi, which is a freely available website which allows you to view live signalling data. So this particular Traxi diagram is between Manchester Oxford Road and Manchester Piccadilly. And as we can see on here, if I get the laser pointer up, you can see the signal colours. You can also see the route that the signaller has set. And the customer information system will use this information, which is called S-class data, to confirm which direction a train's going in. And this is a tried and tested method which Northern already use to announce platform alterations in advance without any human intervention. Now, if we have a look at the Traxi signal diagram for Leyland, as you can see, all the signals are blanked out and there's no routes at all. You can see the current location of a train, but you don't necessarily know where it's going. Obviously, if it's a straight bit of line like here, you know that it's going to go to the next one. But say, for example, here at junctions, you don't necessarily know until it's already moving. So the signalling system in use at Preston is from the 1970s. Here's some couple of pictures from photos.signalling.org, which shows Preston Power Signal Box. As you can see, this is from the 1970s and is rather dated technology by today's standards. It looks impressive. It really does. And at the time, this was very much state of the art. But it doesn't have the data. We're not able to extract this route data from it. And this would require a full resignaling of the Preston area, which would include on the West Coast Main Line all the way from Carnforth down to Exton, which is a significant, would be a significant infrastructure project to complete. It would take a very long time to do and would require a significant amount of public funding, as well as also potential engineering disruption. So, despite that, I tried to launch a campaign. So I made a campaign which was hashtag #ResignalPreston. You may remember a video on this channel um, for this cause. I've unlisted that video now, but I'll put it in the description so you can see what it's like. I'll be honest, I don't like the video. I think I look awful on it. It was the first time I was using an auto cue on my phone and I put it underneath my camera, so I'm constantly looking down. Anyway, I digress. So I attempted to create a campaign. I had a page on Twitter, which was, now known as X, but at the time it was actually Twitter, quite some time ago now. And I would log every time I witnessed an alteration with no advance notice to try and emphasise how frequently this issue was occurring. So I was very much inspired to do this by the campaign to construct platforms 15 and 16 at Manchester Piccadilly, which you will have most likely have heard of if you're into rail campaigning. However, this didn't gain anywhere near as much traction as Resignal Preston ever did or even could do. So it's a very local issue and it only affects passengers who are boarding trains at Leyland. It doesn't affect passengers going through Leyland directly unless they're being delayed at Leyland. But it was a very local issue in comparison to other campaigns that are out there. As mentioned earlier, it's not a simple quick fix. It would be a major infrastructure project. And although this is now planned as part of TriLink, it's very much a long term and there's no quick fix in that sense. It will be reliant on a significant amount of public funding. And as we know, the governments of today are very keen to ensure value for money. Like I say, this is planned now, but it's very difficult to convince them to prioritise such a project, which would only which with the only argument being it will help the situation at Leyland Station. So, was that the end of it? Was I stuck? Nah. I came across my own solution to this issue. This was actually part of a project I did at university. So, taking another look at the Traxi diagrams, I noticed that it was actually possible to predict in advance which platform a train was going to use. Using the existing berths data here, which we've already seen, you can see that once a train passes Ribble Junction here on slow line, it has to arrive on platform 2. There's no possible way for it to change to the fast line. It's the same in the other direction as well. Once a train leaves Buckshaw and it arrives on either slow or fast line, it's committed. It can't change beyond this point. But the CIS wasn't identifying it at the point. It only ever identified it once it entered the platform berth. So it was theoretically possible to identify this. as my project at university, I actually did the demo system, demonstrating that this issue could actually be fixed.
Right, so this is a demonstration video of my project artifact, which is to detect platform alterations in real time at Leyland Station. The artifact itself just runs on a Raspberry Pi, as you can see here, I've just plugged it into my TV. So let's get it going. Oops. Helps if I actually load the correct thing.
This was a very amateur video.
This is a demonstration version, only just because otherwise we could be waiting here all day for a platform alteration to occur if it was the genuine version. Right, so the next train that's due to arrive at Leyland Station, as you can see on this live diagram map, it's 1 November 56, which you can see on here. The timetable, 1 November 56, is there, and that's a Blackpool North service. So at the moment, the CIS, which is the Customer Information System at Leyland Station and also online for National Rail, will only detect a platform alteration if the train gets to this point here, the berth on the platforms itself. But you can see there's berths just before, as you can see it's just gone in now.
This is a platform alteration.
As you can see there, the notification is just triggered as it's entered that berth. Now, it doesn't actually, the system at the station cannot detect it from this point, but you can see it is clearly obvious that a train cannot possibly go from here to platform 3 once it's hit this area, right? So now it has hit that, and as you heard, the Raspberry Pi itself made an audio alert sound, and it's now displaying the message on the screen. And you also heard another sound, which was my phone, and this sends notifications to an app called Pushbullet, which is able to receive automated SMS-style notifications, as you can see. The one that's just come through is there.
Right, I'll stop that there really. You get the gist of it. A lot of it's repeated information. It was just to demonstrate that there was a practical solution to solve which can be implemented. Like I say, this doesn't integrate with the CIS. It simply displays a message on a screen and sends a notification to your mobile phone. To be fair, that could actually be quite useful as a passenger. Right, so how do we get it from a university project to actually a solution on the station? Obviously, I don't work for Northern. I'm just a campaigner. So I would like to make a disclaimer here. So the intention of this video is purely to reflect on my own experience in the hope that both the industry and campaigners are able to work together more effectively and efficiently to resolve data-related accessibility issues across the UK rail network. My views in this section are based purely from my own experiences, which may or may not reflect those of any organisation I'm currently involved with or may be involved with in the future. I don't know exactly what's happened behind the scenes. I've tried as much as I have to find out, as we will see. So a lot of this is going off my own experience. I would also like to emphasise this is not in chronological order. This is just going in order of the techniques I've used to try and resolve this. So yeah, with the disclaimer, I'm sure you can imagine what may happen. So let's go through it. So I've dealt with other customer service teams before with other organisations, and it tends to be a very, very slow process. And you don't always get the information you require. Now, luckily, I did actually know the email of the customer information manager at Northern at the time. So I sent them an email. So here we are. So I sent them that video as well and gave them a full description of the information that I found. And this straight away, this is a very promising reply. They pass the email on to a suppliers and software team to review and offer the chance to discuss face to face. We'll get back to you once I have a reply. Obviously, I've redacted the details of this individual since this isn't about targeting individuals. This is about benefit and accessibility. So Very promising, but the problem was I was not getting any follow-up. I requested a follow-up. This chance to discuss further face-to-face never happened, unfortunately. And the one issue with contacting people directly within an organisation, not going through the customer information, not going through the customer service team, um, they're not obliged to respond to you. They work internally within the company. They don't deal with customers face to face. So I felt like I had no choice but to go through customer service anyway. I felt like I'd exhausted that avenue. So I contacted customer services. And this is the response I got, which I'll briefly gloss over. It says that it's quite complicated due to the small distance between Preston and Leyland, which sits on the very busy West Coast main line. Most of the time, passengers are made aware of platform changes via CIS, to which this is a normal procedure. Yeah, they're being informed as the train's arriving. That's not good enough. However, due to late running trains and traffic, they'll have to change platform at the last moment and need to manually talk to staff to get a faster response to inform our customers. Network Rail are aware of this issue. So, but hang on a minute. That they're saying that it will be done by the CIS, but the thing is, it isn't being done effectively by the CIS, and they'll have to talk to staff at the station to get a faster response. But that doesn't always happen. That's a manual step. So I made very clear to them with the solution that I had, and requested that they either get back to me a time period in which they expect this issue to be fixed, or if they're not able to, why they can't do it. 42 working days later for a response. Yes, I was not happy. I received this response. I've been looking into the CIS screens at Leyland over the past few weeks over a control room manager. They've advised they could see a drop in network stability that impacted the CIS at Leyland on the 4th of October 2025, and this lasted until the 6th. However, since the 7th, the screens are performing 99% reliability. Our team advised that they can drop out due to the network and are working with the supplier closely to try and get the occurrences reduced at this station. What the heck has that got to do with what I am trying to say? There were issues during this time period. I saw it with my own eyes when I was passing through the station. But that's not the problem. The problem is platform alterations. This has got nothing to do with what I have said at all. So I wasn't happy, and I made that very clear to them that this was not answering my question. So I was hitting a brick wall. It seemed there was no one else to turn to. Now, Northern do use an external contractor for their CIS software, so why not contact them? Seems like a logical thing to do. So, direct persons responsible. Yeah, back down that route again. This was the response I got. We recommend Dylan raise this directly with Northern, as it may not be necessary to undergo suggested changes before CIS upgrade is rolled out in the coming months. Dependent on the configuration, the changes here suggested may also be costly to Northern, so it should be Northern's choice whether or not this report is submitted for investigation, as we have no contractual obligation with me. We wrote sponsor requests submitted by those with no contractual obligation in the future. Now, this was something I wasn't expecting, but in hindsight, it does make sense. They have this private company, who I'm not going to mention the name of on here, but you can quite easily find out who they are, are only able to improve their system based off what Northern tell them to do, which I can understand that. I completely get that. It's a contractual thing which I didn't anticipate, and I can understand why this is the case. But it still doesn't make it easier for me, doesn't resolve this issue at all. So it seems like at this point in time nothing was going on behind the scenes. So why don't I find out for myself what's going on behind the scenes? I mean, luckily for Northern, they're run by the DFT, the operator of last resort. So they came under the Freedom of Information Act. And this act gives the public a general right to access information held by public authorities or by persons providing services for them. And this would be applicable to Northern. So I sent a request, and there were actually some discussions between Northern, their CIS contractor, and someone else who was within Network Rail who was also helping me to try and resolve this. I had a look through the email chain, which a lot of it was just explaining this situation, which I've already said to you. But the last couple of emails within this email chain were rather shocking, to say the least. So the last two emails, FYI, he's not letting this one go. And the reply was, I would suggest we've spent enough time on him. Network Rail are not customers of us, so I would leave it there. What kind of response is that? Honestly, talking about customers and other people trying to come to a resolution in this way, and you do not seem to be engaging with them properly, even through their official means. Honestly, it's disgraceful. I was being treated basically as a nuisance. I was very clear as to what response I want from them, and I was just being treated as a burden on them. This was honestly something that was so shocking to me to read. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be a one-time event. Doug Paulley, who's a more well-known disabled transport rights campaigner, has been through similar, albeit on a much larger scale. As you can see, comments mentioned here. You know, one day Doug Paulley may even try to say something positive, but until then, we watch pink pigs flying past the window. I and others are tired of Paulley speaking for us when he rakes in obscene compensation by bullying. If we're getting challenged by Doug, then we're definitely doing something right. I bet Doug looks a bit silly now with his video vandalising a TOC property. I'd like to emphasise that wasn't vandalism, that was him trying out a customer information point. I've seen the video clip. And yeah, a lot of pretty nasty comments about people who are trying to raise valid issues and make valid points. We may be persistent, but that doesn't mean that we're trying to be a nuisance. If you engage with us, there'll be no need for us to act this way. So it's ridiculously unfair and impolite. So at this moment in time, any direct contact with any part of Northern or their contractors seem pointless. So my only real option now was to go to my MP. This felt like the last resort for me. So here was the response I've got. I won't read through the whole thing. If you want to pause to read it, feel free. But I'll gloss over it. So, I'll give you some information on the CIS. Yeah, supplier of the CIS is a private company and they manage the software and intellectual rights. Northern operate under license. They mentioned the signaling data, which I've already mentioned. And I emphasised to them that this was against their customer charter because it states in their customer charter that the information provided to customers should be consistent. Now, this was obviously not the case at Leyland. And they were saying we take our responsibilities very seriously. And for the past 4 years, we've been renewing our CIS display estate. Yeah. Introducing new technology to advise customers of disruption ahead. Exact location of services when trains are delayed and enhance alternative travel following cancellations and delay repay. We have acknowledged to both interested parties at Leyland, which I assume that is me and Network Rail, that we feel we can improve the situation for them and thank you for their theories. The contractor expressed an interest to move to a new cloud-based system, and a brand new operating system has been developed, which includes a difference to how the announcements are triggered. Yeah, as you can see, it basically just says that they are aware of it, they are going to do something about it, and they're going to be swapping the system to the new one in around July 2025 at the earliest, but may slip into early August. And Leyland was being the first station to move over to this new system. So it seemed very promising. And this was exactly the response I wanted to see. It almost feels like they had to change their tune once they realised the comments were now publicly visible online. There was no point in chasing them further beyond this because they provided an answer which I wanted. So I waited until July and August. So this was received on the 23rd of June, which seemed around the corner. By November, nothing had changed at all. And I tried to send more follow-up emails to Northern's customer service, but their responses were very slow and irrelevant. this step was taking place. This was when I mentioned that irrelevant response earlier. That's what I got when I was trying to chase this issue. So I was not happy at all. So I felt like I had absolutely no choice here but to make my views known on LinkedIn, basically tagging the Northern, the CIS provider, as well as high up members of Northern staff, including customer information staff, as well as the managing directors, and also groups such as Transport for All, Green Signals, organisations that are into the railway, campaign for railway accessibility, and also document like Green Signals do podcasts on um, the railways, improvements and changes that are happening. They do all sorts. So I put this post up on LinkedIn. Once again, pause if you want to read it. I won't go through all this because it's pretty much repeating what I've already said. And I did get responses from Northern and their contractor who apparently could not engage with me, which I'll be honest, I do very much appreciate that they did. And they said they were working with Northern to try and get it fixed. Once again, I really do appreciate that because I have no contractual obligation with them. So it still just felt like a waiting game. And I'll be honest, at this point, I had very little hope of anything changing. Until one time I went to the station and came across this.
Attention please, this is a platform alteration. The 1656 Northern service from this station to Manchester Airport, originally due to depart from platform 4, will now depart from platform 2. Next train to arrive at platform 2 is the 1656 Northern service to Manchester
As you
Airport.
can see there, the time
Calling
is
at Buckshall Parkway, Chorley, Adlington, Blackrod, Horwich Parkway, Lostock, Bolton.
Well, that's just the CIS announcing the rest of the stations. But yeah, it was working. It was doing it exactly at the point at which it should do, at which you knew there was a platform alteration happening. It would now announce it and change the screens. They had fixed it. Although I wasn't actually told this, I had to contact them myself. At this point in time, I was mainly using Facebook and Twitter to try and get through to them, as I could get a more immediate response from them. And they confirmed that it had been fixed. And it was a victory. But the whole process of having to go through all this effort which lasted, I will say, I'd estimate just under a year, it was horrible. It wasn't nice. From broken promises to being dismissed as a nuisance. Surely we can do better. Now, as we all know, GBR's on the horizon. So, what could the industry do better in the future? So better communication. I tried to communicate with Northern on several occasions and tried to work around them as much as possible. I offered on many occasions to say, listen, if you want to meet up with me, please meet up with me. I'll make the time free. We can do this. And they didn't seem interested. The responses I got were either irrelevant or severely delayed or didn't have any kind of commitment to solving this issue. And I kept saying, I just wanted a response that said, yes, we will do this by this date, or we can't because of XYZ. The response I got from my MP was good, but why couldn't I get that response myself? And still, it took until November for this to happen. Didn't happen in August like they said it would, or they said July, but August by the latest. Yeah, it was frustrating. There needs to be a better recognition of intermittent accessibility issues. There should be some sort of process which enables them to more easily flag up this sort of thing. The impact of a platform alteration is not as clearly as measurable as, for example, a station with no step-free access, especially since trains would often leave without passengers rather than delaying the train. It wouldn't have any delay at all. Once again, times are measured on the movement of trains, not necessarily on the movement of passengers on said trains. Though there doesn't seem to be the interest to try and recognise and resolve these issues, I personally worked this out myself. And It was easily recognisable that such an issue was present because of my experience as a passenger, a volunteer, and there was also several comments on social media about this exact issue at Leyland. There also seems to be a failure to hold train operating companies and Network Rail properly accountable in these scenarios. We've got the Rail Ombudsman currently, but they don't have the jurisdiction, excuse me if I can get my words out, to resolve these issues. They only can have the jurisdiction for a TOC to compensate a customer. I didn't want compensation. I just wanted this issue sorted. There needs to be better cooperation within the industry. In my initial stage of trying to figure out what was going on, Network Rail and Northern were very much blaming each other for this problem, and neither were willing to take responsibility. And although they both have a part to play in this, there should have been closer cooperation with each other to try and work out what solutions were possible. Also, in the conversations with Northern's CIS contractor, it was apparent there was a lot of red tape in the way in terms of the contracts, which once again I can completely understand from a legal perspective. But would it be better if this sort of thing could be done in-house? Like I say, we've got GBR on the horizon. Would it be better if we could have this as an internal rather than an external company? I'm not necessarily doubting this external company. By all means, you know, they've developed a system and it is now working as it should. But it would be better if we could cut out this whole red tape and do things in-house where everyone's interest is to run a railway. And the demonisation of those wanting to improve accessibility. And this is something I didn't expect to put in this, but it was ridiculous that we're treated as some kind of nuisance or a threat. In reality, we believe in more sustainable transport. We want to travel on the train. We want to enjoy this experience. But when things like this happen, we want it sorted. And I understand there may be people out there who are unreasonable and are genuinely being a nuisance. But if there was better communication, better recognition, better industry cooperation, it wouldn't need to escalate to this point. So imagine if all the effort of trying to quote unquote handle us was put into actually resolving these issues in the first place. So in the meantime, if you come across a similar situation that I have, what can you do? Well, what I would personally advise is you have a plan for how to resolve it. There's a difference between complaining about an issue and coming up with a plan to resolve it. There are many accessibility improvements I would love to see, but would be expensive and not viable to deliver in the short term. If you're able to come up with a solution that I have, propose it to the train operator. From my experience, they won't comment on it, but it's likely to have a stronger influence than just complaining about an issue with no plan in mind. I would also think about how feasible such a plan would be. For example, campaigning for step-free access at a station will require physical infrastructure upgrades that won't happen overnight. In my case, it wasn't that, it was a software change, which is theoretically a lot more simple to implement than having to change infrastructure. I'm not necessarily saying that campaigning for infrastructure changes is worthless or pointless, absolutely not. But it requires a lot more effort. And targeting the correct organisation, this hopefully won't be applicable in the future, but currently it is. With Network Rail and several train operators all playing a part in efficient railway operations, it is possible they may start passing the buck to each other, and this is what happened to me in the very early days of the re-signalling side of things. Now, if one organisation tries to deny responsibility, and you're able to demonstrate the wrong, tell them and prove to them. Otherwise, it's likely nothing will happen at all. For larger infrastructure projects, it's likely the main stumbling block would be obtaining funding. In this instance, I would consider it a political issue and would advise contacting your MP for support. Also, don't be afraid to contact your MP if you're not making any progress on your own. Like I say, I hit a brick wall, so that's what I did. I didn't go through it straight away because I didn't want to. I wanted to try and sort it out with them without getting more people involved. I would also suggest connect with like-minded people. Now, a lot of people have said to me, oh, could you sort this out at our station as well? The work you've done here at Leyland's amazing. we have an issue that's similar. Now, as you can see from my experience, it wasn't the best experience to go through. I mean, at times it was affecting my mental health. The frustration of it all was getting me down, in all honesty. Um, However, I can more than happy to advise, like I am in this video, and go through the steps that I've taken. I was originally going to put in this video as well about En route, which was a transport research and advocacy group ran by David Franknell and Harry Burr. Unfortunately, that group is now ceasing operations. Nothing to do with the passion behind either David or Harry. They are both great individuals who are very passionate, but they're both based within the rail industry and trying to run an official company um, whilst they're working is pretty complex. So that's why they're not doing that anymore. I actually did originally reach out to David to ask his advice with his previous experience of campaigning for platforms 15 and 16. You'll probably remember from his YouTube of him doing that. David was really helpful and I got some great advice from him. And like I said earlier, I don't envisage on doing something similar in the near future with other stations outside that aren't part of Leyland, simply just because I wouldn't have the same passion to do it. But I'm more than happy to advise. By all means, put in the comments below um, if you have any questions. Please, please do. Because the more we can connect, the more we can think together, the more likely we can resolve these issues. And I would say don't give up. You will come across hurdles which you didn't anticipate. I came across hurdles which I didn't anticipate. All you have to do is stay strong and stick to your guns. It may be difficult and you may feel discouraged, but if a solution is viable, the outcome will likely be worth it. It was worth it in my instance. Look at the station now. It is a lot more accessible and a lot of passengers find it a lot easier to use. I've had a lot of amazing feedback from it, in all honesty, including from both passengers and staff at the station. It has definitely made operations a lot easier from getting this sorted. Right, thank you so much for listening. This has been something I've been wanting to do for quite a while. I'll be honest, I've kind of scripted this on a bit of a whim. Probably not the best presentation work I've done, but yeah, it has been an experience and I just wanted to share it all with you. I would also like to note as well, this is to do with my channel. You may have obviously noticed that I don't upload anywhere near as often as I used to. The simple fact is, I just don't really enjoy editing videos anymore. I used to edit videos during COVID. It gave me something to do when there was absolutely nothing else to do. You couldn't do anything with all these restrictions in place. But now we're back to normality. I just found it to be more of a chore than I used to. I am still very much active in life, and I don't want anyone thinking anything bad has happened to me because that hasn't happened at all. I am still very much alive and I'm still very much active on social media. But yeah, uploading to YouTube a lot is just something I don't really enjoy doing anymore. I may do, it's not a total goodbye. I will still do videos occasionally. For example, like this. This is something I've been wanting to make. And I have another video idea which will be similar style to this for potential idea for infrastructure improvements in the North Lancashire area. So hopefully keep an eye out for that. Hopefully that'll be out soon. But yeah, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.